Well, welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Air Restore webinar. This is our uh, uh, April 30th meeting. We are still learning how to do this, and our whole goal is to try to be able to provide everybody with some tools that they can use to do meetings of their own, some ideas about how to run the business, and our goal is to try to make our subject matter a little bit different each week, and also be able to get a number of panelists on so that we've got people on that are capable of providing their knowledge and their information, because as a group we know more than any one individual about things that work and things that don't work. And so today I've got 5 panelists on, and I'm going to have each one of them kind of intermute and introduce themselves. Cheryl, we'll just start with you. If you just unmute and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Cheryl Weinrau here from Hilton Head, South Carolina. Good morning.
And also from Hilton Head, Elizabeth, if you'd like to unmute and introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm Liz Tate, and I'm also from Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Thank you, Liz. By the way, thank you for getting up, all you guys for getting up early and doing this meeting. Lori, let's have you next.
Good morning. I am Lori, and I'm in Tennessee, not with Bill, but in the same state.
Right. Thank you, Lori. John and Barb?
This is John from Oakland, Illinois, a southwest suburb of Chicago, and we're happy to see everybody. We just had a guest come in, so that's why Barb was temporarily missing. Say hi, Barb.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's a glorious day here.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Ken, go ahead and introduce yourself.
We Ken and Mary Dockery from Spring Branch, Texas, and it's going to be a beautiful day here today because we're sending it on to you.
Wonderful. Well, I have one on the phone, and I think that may be Carol. So I'm just going to see, Carol, if that's you, go ahead and introduce yourself. I have somebody that just shows up as a phone number, a 714 number.
I believe that's her. Maybe she's muted.
Well, Carol Anthony is joining us from California. It's really early out there. We'll see whether she's able to make connection a little bit as we go along. I mean, when we stop and think about it, it is 10 here in the east, and that means it must be about 7 o'clock in the morning out there. That's a terrible hour to have to get up and actually be doing something to where you're very presentable. Well, let's kind of get started. You know, one of the things that we've been talking about in week after week after week is the new 3x3 program. And as time goes along, I am getting more and more sold out on this as the way to go. People that are doing it, people that are faithfully following it are having nothing but very, very good success. And people who don't are struggling. And so you got to put 2 and 2 together and say, look, if we're going to make this thing happen, and we have to start getting so everybody is on the same page. And if somebody's got a better page or a better way of doing it, I certainly don't want to discourage anybody from doing it in some other way. But what we do know is this step-by-step process enables people to have a path to follow. And if they follow that path as far as getting into the business, what the business is about, having a view of how you're going to build it, what it's going to look like when you get built, and a vision of what some of the numbers are, that 3x3 program is really all you really need to know about the marketing plan. You know, I've seen so many marketing plans, and recently I've been reviewing an awful lot of other companies' plans, and they're all confusing. And my goal here is to try to be able to put together something that everybody can understand. Everybody understands from the day they get in what it is they have to do tomorrow. They can see where the rewards are going to come from. They receive. It's kind of a little bit of an entry level program more than anything else. But if you follow it, it takes you all the way up through the highest positions that we have along with those rewards. And so this step-by-step process is really aimed at solving the problem we have. Over these next 2 years, we have to recruit about 250,000 people into this business. And if we have to go out and find people that are experts, people that already know everything, people that are highly skilled, we're not going to find them. We have to build this army that we're going to have to take this new technology to the world with people that we've got. people that are the ordinary people, people that have never ever been in network marketing before, can take this program and build something with it. And I was explaining to a couple of groups the other day, as I've been on the road, you know, everybody gets so frustrated without trying to steal network marketers from other network marketers, and we're all recycling the same people. And what we really need to do is to go back to the roots of network marketing and say, well, if you provide a simple enough plan, a simple enough base with high enough rewards for the average person in the world, you can get them to do extraordinary things. There's not a person in the world that's not already selling a product that actually believes that they can sell a product. But if you have the right kind of a plan and the right kind of a program, you can make them successful. And if they follow this thing in a very short period of time, they're going to think that they are the world's greatest salespeople, and they truly will be, because they will develop and utilize skills that they just didn't know they had, which is basically the skill of being a human being. So let's kind of go back and refresh our memory just a little bit about what it is that we are talking about when we talk about the 3x3. 3x3 is getting 3 people to get 3 people to get 3 people. And as if you can recall the whole program, it is a step-by-step process, and it starts with step 1. And step 1 is the basic building block that we have for everything else that we're going to do. Let me just get that up here. This is step 1, and this is what I call the basic building block. This you can teach to anybody. And what do we mean when it's the basic building block? This is when you talk to somebody in terms of getting into the business, and the first question they have is, well, how am I going to do the business? Or maybe it's yourself saying, I'm in this business, what have I done? Now what am I going to do? Here's what you do. This is the basic building block that if you repeat it, will get you to wherever you want to go. Number 1, as we've talked so many times, do not sell the product. If you try to sell the product, you're going to become totally frustrated, because you're going to have to unsell so much misinformation out there, so many other products, answer so many questions that you will be lost in the mire before you ever get a chance to share the product. If you share the product first, you don't have to go through all of that, because the reason that you had to go through it to begin with is because people don't understand how it's any different than any other product. And once you share the product, you've overcome that in so many things as well. So I say, don't share the product. Simply tell people something very, very simple. Look, I'm involved in the world's greatest company. You wouldn't believe what this company does. They keep sending me checks in the mail. I just do very simple things. I take the product out and I share it, and all of a sudden I'm making more money than I've ever made in any network marketing company. I don't know whether I'm nuts or not, but I need to have you do one thing for me. I want you to try this product. I want you to try it for 24 hours. And of course, they're going to say, well, what does it do? And before I go very much farther, I'm going to ask Cher to, in one sentence, one single sentence, tell me what it is that this product does.
All we simply do is we restore the energy back into the air to make the indoor air act like fresh outdoor air.
Fantastic. And Cher, I know you've had years and years of experience with all kinds of pitch lines and everything else. But outside of the slight mental block that you have, we've talked about previously, that in essence is what the product is. And that makes us so different than anybody else. And if you just nod your head slightly at the end and add a little tagline, and you know how fresh air is, you basically have put your customer on the same plane that you are. You all know what fresh air is. I want you to try this and see if it is not that. Now, there's all other kinds that you can say right after that. And you can tell that because they're going to say, well, what did it, what does that mean? What's it going to do? I can't tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that. I want you to try it first. I want you to try it for 24 hours. Part 2 of step 1. Only do it for 24 hours. I mean, only do it for 24 hours. you know, and as soon as I say that, somebody has got some kind of a strange set of circumstances where you say, well, of course, try it for longer than that. Maybe they had to unplug it. Maybe they weren't home. Maybe they put it in the wrong room. Who knows what they did? And there's always a reason that you can extend it. But if you're normal, your NOM is 24 hours, it does one thing. They are going to get the greatest benefit in that first 24-hour period. So by you have to actually, the longer you go, the harder it is for it to remember what the environment was like without it. And so you decrease the probability of a sale by increasing the number of hours that you give them for a trial. The other reason is it holds your inventory down to a minimum. I mean, if you give people a week trial and you're going to try to build this thing 3 by 3 by 3, it means you have to have 3 systems out all the time for a week. Why, gosh, that turns out to be a lot of inventory out there. Whereas if you just do it for 24 hours at a time, you can put one in every room like you're supposed to. You can do it the way you need to do it for the maximum result. 24 hours also sets a dead limit, a time limit. Nobody does anything until the last minute anyway. And so if you give them a week, they're not going to do anything until the last day. So give them only 24 hours. And then the third thing is you ask for the results. What did it do? What did it do for you? And you're going to get all kinds of things. Now, as I said before, don't tell them ahead of time what it's going to do, because you're going to bias their answer. If you tell them that it made, boy, I wish you got to try it. I know what it did for me. It made me sleep really good. Before they've tried the product, they will do something silly like stay awake, seeing if they're going to sleep. You know, it's, whatever you do, it's going to color the answer, or they'll give you an answer they think you want to hear. But if you don't tell them anything other than try it, then I'll ask you for the results. Now, this gets to be the key that we're going to be talking about here today, because once you ask for the results, you're going to get them say all kinds of things. They will quite often say, I don't know what it was supposed to do. I know I slept really good. I woke up early, but I slept really good. I got that early REM sleep. Or they might say, you know, I didn't hear my husband snoring. I never hear a husband say, I didn't hear my wife snoring. I don't know what there is about that. But somebody's going to say, I didn't hear my spouse snore. You know, there's things like that. Then what do you say? Well, this is the point that I think that you have to do something, and that is start to share other people's experiences right after you've asked for the results. You ask for their results, and depending on what they say, you search back in your memory and say, which meeting did I go to? Which webinar did I go to? I heard somebody talking about this very thing. Or if you've been around long enough, you can relate to your own customers, say, isn't that interesting? Let me tell you what happened to somebody else, and you build on that. And 2 or 3 experiences added to the experience that they already had reinforce what it is that they already know. And by the time you get through with that, you basically have, you're in a position really to close the deal. I mean, it's not really that hard, and it's all about stories, and you don't have to talk about the science. And anytime that the science comes up and you feel threatened by the science, you fall back on what Cher said. You know, look, all we're doing is putting the energy back in the air to make the indoor air act like outdoor air. You know, and as a result of that, look at all the benefits that you get. And you can keep going and going and going. But part 3 of step 1 is the point where I think that you start to get in and tell some stories. And the stories the stories don't necessarily have to be any one particular story, you know, because there are all kinds of them. And there's nothing wrong with talking about a story that you heard. Something that really, really happened. You know, it has to be true, because people know a canned story when they hear one. If it's not true and you're trying to stumble around to say it in a professional way, you're going to lose. You know, just tell them what happened, because we have so many miraculous things happening that other companies would die for. They can't even stage what we have happening automatically. So kind of build on those kinds of stories. And so we're just going to spend some time now talking with our panel and talking about the kinds of stories that they hear. And we're going to be recording these stories as we record this the whole message here. And I just want to start. John and Barb, would you guys like to start with the story that I asked you to?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, a friend of mine, Mark Adonius, is played football with me, and we were very good friends over the years. He had a bad virus one time, about 4 years ago, and he had to have a brain operation, left damage, and he's still trying to get over it. For 4 years, his sleep patterns were interrupted and moved over. He had delusional times. Actually, he was confused, and seriously, we thought he wasn't really going to improve it. What's the word? What's the word? I have this brain problem. I did have a stroke, but I do have at times I have problems with the word. But he just was not fit to do everyday things. And little by little, some of that improved. But his sleep pattern was to go to bed at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, get up at 10, 11. And he was really, besides his own problems, he was not active when other people were, and he was really causing a lot of major problems. Well, as soon as he plugged us in, he told me the first couple of days, he said, I sleep is so much better. He says, thank you so much. Then after a couple of weeks, he says, John, he says, I didn't want to say nothing earlier. He said, but my doctor told me that this will, gradually on its own shift back to normal sleeping days. And every 4 o'clock, and it hasn't in 4 years. I have moved up 3 hours already. So I don't know medically what this does or what it doesn't, but for him, it did. And he's going to tell us more about it.
Cool. I want to just make a couple comments about the story. Appreciate you're telling it for them. When I'm up in your area in the near future, I'm going to sit down and record his whole story, and we'll edit it down and make a really good version, because that's a powerful story. But a couple of things here. Now, we always worry about, should we be telling things that are kind of medical, because we don't want to be making medical claims. I'm kind of getting a feedback on you there, John. And so we don't want to be making medical claims, but we're not really making a medical claim if you tell the story, that same story, with just a simple little tagline. If in his recovery, he could spend a lot more time outdoors physically, he probably would get the same kind of result. What you've really got is that the body heals so much faster when you start getting so much more oxygen into it, which is what happens when you spend time outdoors. It heals in a lot of different ways. Brain connections are made a little better when your oxygen level goes up. All these things kind of happen. And so there's nothing wrong with telling somebody's story exactly like that and saying that's what happened when they put in the naturalizer. And that's a powerful story, because it shows you the power, not necessarily of our product, but the power of outdoor air. And the power of our product is that we create that energy. We recreate that energy back into the indoor air.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure can.
Barb just mentioned something to me the other day that I wasn't even paying attention to. For years, I've had leg cramp problems from sitting too long at a table or anything. Or in the middle of the night, I jump up and excruciating pain. And since we've had this, I have not had one leg cramp. It probably has to do with oxidation, but believe me, it's worrying.
I think you'd be surprised if you knew how many ailments we just consider kind of common ailments are partially the result of not getting enough oxygenated blood down into our system. It's one of the reasons why hyperbaric oxygen and hyperbaric ozone, for example, have become so popular for treatments for all kinds of ailments, is because it allows us to get the oxygen in there, and that's a very good way to do it. But the reason that we have to do that, of course, is that we just plain don't get enough oxygen in our system. We're always in a surplus, in a negative area. We never have a surplus. We can't get above 100%. And so basically, we just kind of continue to suffer from it. That's a good story. Everybody that listens to this call can use that story. And there's nothing wrong with telling that story, because it does not cross that line into making us a piece of medical equipment. Elizabeth, can I call on you next?
Hi, I'm Liz Tate, Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I've known Sheriff for 30 plus years. I'm an old user of the air purifier from way back when, and your old company was a dealer. And I've had great success with it in personal use here at Hilton Head because we have so much humidity, and it helps with the mildew and mold issues that I get if I don't use it, attaching itself to the underneath portion of my furniture. And so that really helps keep that level down so I don't have to clean it all the time. I use it now. The Air Restore is great. I have one in every room, and the one that I have in my guest bathroom is for my cat named Loverboy. His potty is in there as well. There's a little cutout that I have it in where you could sit and put your makeup on. And it just, I don't ever feel embarrassed if somebody comes over and says, "May I use your restroom?" I'm like, "Oh, sure, fine." I'm not like, "Oh, did I clean the litter box out?" Don't worry about that. But I tell you, what I've been using it for of late is I have become, or am now, a Uber driver. And for those of you who are not familiar with Uber, it is a new thing where you use your own car to give people rides. And it's all computer generated. It's very sophisticated, very first class outfit. But not to sell Uber, but I put one in the car. I always have. I've had an Air Restore in my car. And it could not be better because I pick up typically in the late afternoons, and the ladies and their husbands are going to dinner. And we live in a tourist, island that is a resort and lots of tourists, so they all always want to go out. Well, the cologne, oh my God, it is so strong when they get in, and I'm just like, oh, just crack your window, give it a second. By the time they're out of the car, it's gone. And what's nice is because I go to pick up someone else, they don't want to have to smell that cologne, So, and then also it helps with people who smoke cigarettes and they get in the car, and you know how you can smell that strong smell if they're a heavy smoker. If I'm taking someone to the Savannah airport, I don't have to deal with that smell, and it's just been great. And what I've done is I went out just this morning and took a picture, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but how I have it is Velcroed to the very back of my console.
What a good idea.
What a cool idea.
Yeah, and because in that console I have a plug that I can plug it in, and I put it there because I want to sell it. And people ask me about it, and I'm telling you, Bill, people get in my car all the time. They go, "Gosh, it smells. Is this a new car? Is this a new car?" They're always, and it's a 2014. It's a Nissan Altima. And yeah, I mean, it looks nice. It's, I take real good care of it, but gosh, it smells like a new car. No, it's not a new car. It's my Air Restore unit.
All right.
So that's kind of two of my stories. My new hobby, Uber driving, and I call myself an Uberette. And I'm having a blast because I'm single and by myself, and so it's a great way to meet people, and lots of people. And I think that once our season starts in May, the Air Restore sales hopefully will really take off.
Well, every one of your clients is going to need one in the hotel that they're staying at, or in the condo, or wherever, the summer home that they're staying there. So that's super.
Exactly.
I have to tell you, I think Uber drivers are one of our untapped markets.
Yes.
Because I have, on my little trip last time to Houston, I took an Uber drive over from the airport to the hotel, and I recruited a brand new dealer for the organization over there on my way over there, because you got to talk about something. And the one thing I really like about Uber drivers, number one, they've already sorted themselves out. They want to be doing something.
Yes.
They're not happy with the way things are, whether they don't get out enough, they don't make enough money. They're trying to change their station in life. They've already identified themselves as a candidate because they're independent. They work on their own. They're creative. They're doing something. I love them. I love the whole group of them. I think that we need to get them all recruited. Sign them all up under yourself.
Liz, also share with the panel today and the listeners of something that we did last summer, I believe it was, about your other business that you have and the amazing things that Air Restore did for some of your clients. Talk about that.
Are you referring to
the closets and the moves?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just retired from a business I've had here on Hilton Head for 7 years called Senior Move Managers. And I help seniors downsize and relocate into retirement communities here. Well, needless to say, you know how seniors do not like to turn the air conditioning down, and their houses are always just so hot. Well, as a result, their closets get really mildewy. And I had one client that it was so bad, I had to call Cher. I was like, emergency, emergency. And she was there that afternoon with a unit for every room and the closets dedicated, because my people couldn't work in the unit, in the house that we were moving them out of. It was so bad. So it really rescued that project, because I have not had the benefit of the Air Restore in a project not quite so severe, and my people got sick. They just, you know, and I got sick, and then we couldn't work. So I think that's probably what you were referring to. It really, I mean, I was literally emergency.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, you guys, I love.
Their shoes get mildewy.
Yeah.
It gets in their leather shoes.
Well, you've given us several stories there, one right after the other, and that's what my point is. That once you start telling stories, you recall other stories, either your own or stories that you've heard. Because I'll guarantee you right now, I'm certainly going to, in my talks, in my stories, I'm going to be talking about Uber drivers. You know, and that's the whole idea. That's why we're networking. That's why we gather these stories up. They don't have to be, you know, bringing somebody back from the dead type of a story, because these little things all affect the quality of life. And that's as important as life itself, really, because that's what life is really all about. Ken, how about you and Mary? Have you guys got a story for us this time? Somebody unmute.
It's better with the microphone on than off. Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm late. We had a bad storm last night, and so I got distracted outside taking pictures of all of the really the beauty with the sun coming up on the sparkling leaves on the trees, but there were an awful lot of leaves on the ground, and I had to go on a search hunt for the bird feeder. How it got there, I don't know. But anyway, no tornado, just a lot of straight line winds and lightning and noise and that sort of thing. So anyway, yeah, we've got a couple stories, and I'll tell you a quick one about about Nanette. We found Nanette because Ken was checking around at not old people, but old acquaintance, not old acquaintance. Well, he is kind of old. Anyway, he runs a barber shop, the old-fashioned kind, Cher, where you know, it's just guys go in and get their hair cut, whatever. And so Ken gave him a call, and he said, yeah, you know, I'm glad you called. I need something to do besides this. I take a couple days off, whatever. And so Ken and I went to see him. He's a pretty cool guy. And he said, well, I'd like to do this, but I'm really, you know, I'm not sure I have that much time, but can I refer people to you? Ken said, well, you buy product and we'll help you sell it. So he did, and he referred us to Nanette. Nanette is an amazing woman, and she had so many sinus surgeries that she could no longer smell. She had no resistance to disease, and it was extremely important that she keep her house clean. And so the barber knew the husband and referred us to them. And you know, this is what you do. You help people that you bring into the business, right, Sherry? You help them. And so we went and met Nanette, and we showed her this technology. And it was really super important that when she comes into her house, that the air is fresh, that she doesn't have to worry about things floating around in there. You know, if you can smell mildew, Liz, you know there's particulate in the air. If you can smell that stuff, you know that there's stuff in the air that needs to be cleaned out. And what do ions do? They clean out the air. So that was a really, really, really good thing. And from that, we have sold quite a few of her friends, but we always look after our barber friend. So anyway, he's out of inventory now. He hasn't bought any more inventory. So that's okay. We'll let him know. And if he wants to buy inventory, we'll help him with that. But other than that, whatever, we've made good friends with some of these folks. And so we're just moving on. You got to keep the air clean. And I know Ken's got a story.
You know,
before, let me interrupt a second, Ken. You know, one of the great things is because he had a story, and you got him basically started in the business. You know what turns people's cranks to get them to start thinking about their business again? Because it's easy to forget it. If you just don't do it in a couple of days, it goes to the back of your mind. Tell him a story. Tell him, hey, we told your story on today, and here's another story that you might like. You know, I just thought about you while they were telling it on there. When you can tell people stories about them in it, or when you have stories that are like theirs, you get them involved, you get them back involved. And it's not that people ever deliberately quit doing the business, especially Air Restore, because you don't ever quit Air Restore unless you really, really tell us you want to quit. You're always there. The business is always there. And so what you need are rejuvenating things. And things from the company don't rejuvenate you very much. What rejuvenates you is when you find out that somebody else changed somebody's life because of you, or because somebody changed got their life changed by doing something similar to what you've already done. And that's why I think it's so important to use stories as a way of getting back to people.
That's right. That's right. That's good. And Liz, you kind of made our day here. We do know some Uber drivers here, there, and around, and that's the smartest thing, you know. That's really, really a good thing to do. So proud of you, girl. You got a lot of courage popping out there and doing it.
You know, Bill, over the years, the things that we've asked people to do, excuse me, are almost always things that they're unwilling to do. They're afraid to do. And first of all is to sell something. They think that there's something about selling something that it's intimidating to most people. And the other thing is recruiting. And so, you know, when you minimize those two issues, you expand your market tremendously, because people, you've taken those two fear factors away, and that's what the 3x3 does. And you know, there are just so many stories. We need to actively gather those stories like we have in the past, and those stories sell. And we've got one who you're talking about medical devices. We've got a couple that are close to us. Actually, I married them. And
he performed the ceremony.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask another question, but I'll go.
You know,
he's licensed. He can do that.
In today's world, I mean, nothing's bizarre anymore. But anyway, she's a dentist, and he runs a sports center where kids come in. They've got a batting range and all kinds of things, and so when we first talked to him about it, she said, yeah, we've got a big dog in the house. And her whole story is that she doesn't smell the dog anymore. And so, you know, it's as little as that, or as big as Liz talking about mold and mildew. Here again, I think we have to be careful that we don't overpromise and underdeliver and expect the Air Restore units to be commercial units, because they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So what did the the thing lead to at the sports center? What'd you do day before yesterday?
Well, we've now got a banner and a display system down there and brochures, and he has people coming through there that work out, and their kids, their kids in that environment where they want to be healthier and play athletics. And so it's going to be interesting. It's kind of a little experiment that we're doing, and but we're going to see how many referrals we can get out of that through passively exposing the product. I think that sometimes we miss that. We make it too hard.
Oh, I think so too. One of the things about over-promising and under-promising is that you eliminate an awful lot of that if you time when it is that you're telling people. That's why I'm saying that in the process, you want people to have experienced it before you start telling them about it, because then they kind of already have a way of putting it in perspective, and they won't automatically jump into the thing like I had happen clear back in the old days. Right when we first got started with air purification up in Minnesota, I had somebody call me and said, "Hey, we're over at the Prairie Island Nuclear Station. What do we do for radioactive waste?" We run. We get out of there. Because nobody has a concept or a perspective, and so you kind of have to do that kind of thing. So those are really good. I like the stories, but you can see how the stories, one story, once you tell it, all of a sudden I'm having several stories pop into my head here, and once you get it started, it just doesn't stop. And putting it in perspective, giving it a human face, giving it a real experience, not a canned experience, not test data, not guys in lab coats, but real people having experiences with it, make all the difference in the world. Appreciate you guys. Lori, can I get you to unmute there and tell us how things are over in Crossville?
Oh, Crossville's doing well. I did want to say something about when you're placing the units and people ask you what they're going to do. What I typically tell them is that I don't want to influence anything that may or may not happen with them, so that when I call them the following day that they can tell me what it is. And almost always the person will say, "I slept better." And then when I say to them is, that's what most people tell me. And then they're like, oh, okay, now I'm like most people. So that's something that I do is that I just say, I don't want to influence your opinion. You tell me what's going on with that.
Sure.
I do have, my husband and I were out to dinner with a couple that started off to be a customer, and they became a dealer because they were totally blown away by Air Restore and what it did for the mildew smells in their home. And while we were at dinner, I got a phone call from somebody else that I know in the area, and I let it go to voicemail because I didn't want to be rude. And then this person texted me and said, I need to talk to you. So I thought, well, I texted her back. And she was at a lady's house that she cleans, and the lady she received a notice from her apartment complex that she was going to be evicted because other residents there were complaining about the odors coming out of her apartment. I went there right away that night, and she had 2 cats. She was a lady in a wheelchair and had some medical issues where she was incontinent, and there was obvious a need for something in there. So I put set up the units. She is now not being evicted, and she told me that she sleeps way better, and her cats appear to be in better moods also.
I'm not sure I buy the moods in the cat, but I'll go along with that.
Yep. I just, whatever made her happy, and I'm just happy that she's now in a position where she doesn't have to worry about being evicted. Because that's really kind of a scary thing.
Now, who would ever think of a story like that? I'll bet you every one of you has just automatically filed that story. It will be retold, I will guarantee you, because that leads you right smack into phase 2 of the thing, because not only did it get her, she was saved from being evicted, but I am sure, Lori, that you have already talked to her about how she could get her units for free, going into basically what is going to be the next step of the program, because she just identified herself as a person who is worrying about being evicted And usually that means that they have not a lot of choice about where they're going to live, if that normally becomes a concern. Maybe something special here. But I think that's one of the clues that you take, and you have to have a range of stories and a range of options so that you know ultimately what you're looking for are other Uber drivers, other people that are going to be evicted from apartments, somebody who has got a need so that they can see beyond what it did for them. And I'll tell you what, I would guarantee you her personal testimony will sell more product for her than all the brochures, all of the fancy stuff that we do. Her telling that story is the key to building the business and getting other people involved. Fantastic story, Lori. And you know what? Crossville has become kind of the center of the universe when I start telling stories, because we already have a couple of stories out there. We have the gentleman with mesothelioma out there. We've got a couple of the other stories that we tell out there about people who are recovering from misdiagnosed Alzheimer's, misdiagnosed COPD, things like that, that when they tried the product, their whole life changed. And so, these stories have been building for a little while, and we're going to get them all down so everybody's got them. But a little forum like this, just to get together and swap stories, is one of the most powerful building techniques you can do when it comes to a business. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it. So, Carol, are you on or not?
Let's see. I do not see Carol on with us, Bill. I'm sorry to report.
Okay.
But I would love to tell her story, if I may.
Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, when Air Restore first came out, Carol in California was very interested in finding out if this product could do two things for her. She had a need for better sleep. She also had a need for food preservation. She is a real big Whole Foods person, always lots of fruit around and vegetables and things. And her complaint was that, her strawberries would mold in the refrigerator after a few days. Her peaches and different things that she kept on her counter would go bad quickly. So she did a little experiment in the early days with Air Restore to prove that the amazing technology that Bill created truly could make a difference. So she plugged in an Air Restore unit right there on her counter where she kept her basket of fruit. And Bill, do you recall it was like, 10 or 12 days and everything was still ripe and beautiful and not rotten or smelly, right?
Yep, absolutely. And that's pretty solid, because if you really think about it, when does fruit really start to rot? It doesn't rot while it's hanging on the tree. It rots when it falls on the ground. And the reason why is because the air can't get to it anymore, and the ethylene gas that causes the ripening from the outside, it continues to accumulate. So there's a scientific reason that nobody cares about. The fact of the matter is, what she really cared about was the fact that it didn't rot, and she got a few extra days out of it. Convenience stores have always told us that when they put our product in right near their little place where they have just a little bit of fruit and vegetables and so forth, they're able to get 2 or 3 extra out of the bananas. Well, that's the profit in the bananas. That you pay for the unit just by extending that life of time just a little bit. Fantastic story. And we got to get Carol on one of these days to get it recorded, and so that we get that down there as well.
Yes. Her other big one is sleep. She has not been a good sleeper for many years, and she now swears that her sleep patterns have been so reduced, like you heard earlier from, I think it was John and Barb, that she can live on less sleep and feel so refreshed. And when she wakes up, it's an amazing experience.
And that's pretty common. It really, really is. I want you to tell one more story, because it was your friend that really kind of got us there. Tell us the Sue story.
Okay. Bill and I, almost 2 years ago now, I guess, we were in Orlando, Florida, doing a meeting, and a sister of Jeannie Cooper came to see Bill and learn about Air Restore. She was interested in the business and what the technology could do for her and how it might change her life. So we were staying at a hotel there in Orlando, and there was an Applebee's attached to the hotel. So that's where we decided we would meet. So I get there, and Sue and her husband are sitting at, oh, there's Loverboy, the cat. Sue was sitting in a booth at the Applebee's, and she looked like she was gasping for breath. And I walked up to her. I said, "Are you okay?" "No, I can't stay here. I can't breathe." I said, "Why?" She said, "I'm having a reaction. I have to get out to the fresh air." So we went outside, and we were, interestingly enough, when we walked outside, there was outside tables in January in Orlando, thank goodness. So we sat down, and in the smoking section, I might add, there was cigarette smoke smell outside. We were looking for a plug to plug in the air restore unit to help enhance Sue's ability to stop the reaction she was having from shellfish allergies. The shellfish allergies would cause her to go into an anaphylactic shock kind of situation. And she was trying to catch her breath outside in the fresh air. And then Bill walked up and to join us. And he said, "What's happening? I thought we were meeting inside." And she told Bill, "I can't be inside. I have this horrible, horrible problem with shellfish allergies that I actually sometimes have to be hospitalized." And she said, "Oh, Bill, if you could only make me an air restore product with a battery so I could go everywhere, that would be a godsend." And Bill, in his wonderful way, just looked at her and said, "Well, I could do that." And she said, "You could?" And so he did. Bill made and created the battery on the back of the Air Restore unit, which we now call On Demand, Air Restore On Demand. And Bill, I'd like for you to tell the story of the first reaction that Sue reported back to you when she got the product, and where you told her to put it and why.
I honestly can't remember some of what we did, but I do know that what she did is that she had to experiment with it. And when you're talking about somebody who has a life-threatening kind of experience with allergic reaction to something, not being able to breathe is very fearsome. So she took it and she tried it first in the tried it back down in the Applebee's, but then Chick-fil-A. With the peanut oil, because people have, if you're allergic to one thing, you're usually allergic to other things as well. And she stayed there, and I think for well over an hour, and no problem at all. She went back to that Applebee's. I think it was the same Applebee's, as a matter of fact. And she spent the whole afternoon with her family there. Never been able to do that before in her life, And then finally going to the Red Lobster, which I consider the ultimate test. I mean, if somebody is allergic to shellfish, you cannot imagine a more difficult environment. All that steam, all that airborne protein, she should have died when she went in there. And, we had to kind of get her to not hold the naturalizer up to her face, because she was trying to hold it right up here like this. Well, that doesn't really work very well. What you need to do is set it down and set it on the table or carry it with you a little bit. But she went into that Red Lobster and she stayed there for, I think it was 17 minutes, which if you're expecting to die, is forever to sit there and look down a gun for that long, which essentially she was doing because if it didn't work. And I'll tell you, I told her, don't worry about it. I'm sure it'll work. And then I sweat bullets because I was sure it would work, but it was not me that was going to suffocate. And it was going to be her that was going to do it. Well, the reason I wanted you to tell that particular story is because I think that story is so significant, because I always ask the question, do you really think that little tiny naturalizer cleaned up a whole Red Lobster in 30 seconds, which is about how long she had her a minute? Impossible. Because it's not an air purifier. And that just leads me. I keep that story always on tap, so that when somebody starts talking to me about air purifiers, I can always go back to them. You really think it was the air purification? Do you think any air purifier could clean up a Red Lobster fast enough to keep somebody who has an allergic reaction to shellfish from responding? And the answer is, of course, no, it can't. That's why we're different. That's why we cross that line and we start talking about the things that we do beyond air purification, why we are so exceptional compared to all the other products that are out there. And I like that story. We just heard a bunch of stories today. 6, 7 stories. That's enough to build a business on. If you can't build a business with those ideas, you haven't even thought about it. I mean, the idea of velcroing a naturalizer on the armrest for an Uber driver. I'm out talking to every Uber driver I can think of. Because they talk. They love to talk. That's why they're Uber drivers, is because they like human companionship. And I've never met a really rich one. Well, maybe Liz is, but most of them are not terribly rich. And, the idea is, this is the idea about stories. Let's kind of go back to finish up step 1 here, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Whoops. Okay, so here we are. We just got down here asking for the results. Now you've used the testimonials up, and if that point, when you have reached that point, they've told you what it did for them. You've told them what it did for other people. If they haven't got their juices running now, they need something really to happen. I think the biggest reluctance, outside of the fact that people feel like they can't sell anything, is that they don't feel like they can afford to gamble. They can't afford to get in the business. And I think when you do number 4 and you offer them the free alternative, and by that, what do I mean? I mean that what you offer them is the idea that they can get their system for free and actually make money. And when you ask them a question like, would it work any better if it was free? Of course it will. And I was kidding somebody the other day. I said, and if they say, no, I really wouldn't want it if it was free, you kind of want to be careful with that person, because they're probably not quite right. And of course they want to. And so then how do we do that? Let's just finish up with that. Because how do you tell somebody you can get the unit for free? Because when they say sure, then the next thing you have to tell them is, what I'm going to have to do is we're going to enroll you. Well, how much money is that? $399. And they said, that does not sound like free, but it really is, because what you'd have to tell them is that how this thing works then is that once you're enrolled, then what's going to happen is you're going to do exactly the same thing that we just did here today. I want you to share the product. I didn't have to tell you how it worked. I don't know how it works, so how can I ask you to do that? All I'm really telling you to do is to try it and share your experiences with me, and then I'll share mine with you and see if you know other people that either have a common experience or need like you or I, and try it themselves. Because every time you go out and you get somebody to enroll, just like you're going to enroll right now, the very next day the company sends you a check for $130. And that $130, that's pretty significant. That mailbox money comes in a couple days. You do that once, you do that twice, you do that 3 times, and by the time you do it 3 times, you've earned $390 of your $399, and without you doing anything, without anything else happening, what happens is the company sends you automatically a free whole house system worth $370. So what you end up with is a total of a $760 deal on a $399 investment, which means you've got your own unit, you've got another one to continue on the business, you got your first promotion to the first rank in the business, and you can't really get a better deal than that. All ties together with the idea of what we're going to do is to get people started with this 3x3 program. And you see, when you add that into the mix, add the stories into the mix, now we've got really a totally complete package for people to be able to see how they can get into business doing a very simple thing, doing something that could actually have some really big ramifications. And when you get them to that point, when they start to see, well, maybe I do know one person that might need this. I've got an Uber driver. I know a friend that's an Uber driver. I know somebody that's got a stinky cat. I know, all of a sudden, once the juices start to run, it's not about selling anymore. It's about identifying people and sharing information with them. And it no longer becomes a mystery, and it's something that everybody can do. So I'm pretty excited about it. We're going to do this periodically and get some more stories here. If I have to, this is going to be the best way I can think of to collect some great stories. Elizabeth, I just love those that you had today. Lori, that was great. Everybody's story was great. And John, next time up there, we're going to get a good recording of your friend there as well, because that's a fabulous story. So any panelists got anything else they'd like to add?
Bill?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, like I said before, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. But I'm going to tell you something. This equipment does some remarkable things. Buddy Smith had a friend who was a hairdresser, actually, and they were trying to remodel a house. And it was so bad. And this was mold, Liz. And it was so bad that they couldn't stay in there and remodel this house. They took and put a system in there. And, we sent you the photos some time ago of the before and after. And it's amazing what this technology does. We just don't want to try to make it a commercial project. But I'm going to tell you what, it's amazing what it does do.
Well, when you think about it, you're right. We do not want to sell it as a commercial product, because it really isn't. But when people misuse it and put it into a commercial area, it does more than you might think. It is that powerful. And so we border right on the edge there. So, well, I think I'm going to just wrap this thing, guys, up. I really appreciate every panelist here. Thank you. I'm going to just end the recording right now. And when I do that, I'm going to open it up and see if we can get any of the other people in here. So we will see you next Saturday. I think we're going to be doing this live from California next Saturday. So we'll see who we have on here for panelists. I would invite everybody back and to take part in this. This needs to be a regular part of your business building. I'm going to stop the recording right now. Thanks, everybody, for participating.